to the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard De La Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater, who is not here today. It is Monday, February 17th, Avowed Eve.
Avowed Eve, yes.
Avowed Eve 2025.
Actually, if it comes out, does it come out at midnight?
It may, yeah.
Then I'd be able to go home and download it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be sick. That'd be awesome.
That's whatever.
Or it's that, or it's one of those things. The thing that really gets me angry is, and we need to figure this out
really
as a society, really, is like, don't tell me your game comes out on March 5th if it's March 5th at 11 o'clock in the morning. When I wake up at 6 a.m. on March 5th, I want to be able to download and play this game.
Right.
Not figure out what I'm going to do for the next 4 hours, 5 hours before I play your game.
Watch.
Yeah, so I need times. I don't want to have to Google it. I know that makes a lot of money for PC Gamer and all the what's the search engine SEO, search engine optimization, writing the unlock times for certain games.
Yes.
No, I went on Steam, unlocks. Actually, I think it probably does say what time it unlocks for some. But anyway, yeah, Avowed Eve tomorrow. I'm very excited. It's got good reviews thus far.
The reviewers seem to be here and there on it, but all the normies who are playing it currently are like, this is incredible.
And well, let me do that. Okay, so youtube.com, Gaming Discourse, patreon.com, Gaming Discourse. Go follow us, give us money, and I'll give you content in return. That's how the internet works. And then I'm working on a review of Eternal Strands right now. Started it today. I'd say a solid, I'd say like a 70%, 75% chance patrons get new review tomorrow. If not tomorrow, 100% chance it'll be done by Wednesday.
Okay.
So we'll have to see. I was cruising through it today. I got pretty far, but I got relatively far. But I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish it tomorrow. So if not tomorrow, definitely Wednesday. It'll be out for the public Friday, Saturday, sometime around there.
Okay.
And I think I'll talk about Eternal Strands next week once I have the video out. But one thing that's exciting me about Avowed is, so Avowed is set in Aora, which is the Pillars of Eternity universe. And Pillars of Eternity are the first one, and Deadfire are two of my favorite RPGs of all time. And I think Pillars is one of the best RPGs ever made. It's not necessarily innovative. It was they just remade Baldur's Gate essentially. But the writing, the characters, the world building, the combat, so much of it is just excellent. The art style, it mimics the Infinity Engine, like 2D isometric stuff, and some of the different, like when you go out into the wilderness, or even in Deadfire as well. Both of them just have like beautiful environments and art that I just never really got fully over. If you detected a little hesitation around Deadfire, is because I think Deadfire was a bit of a step back. They tried to do a pirate thing. I think it didn't really work. It was kind of weird because they had a ship-to-ship combat, naval combat mini game, and I didn't think it was very good. And you could just, instead of doing the ship-to-ship combat, you could just run your ship up to theirs and board, and it would just become normal combat.
Like a D&D combat, yeah.
So that's what I would always do, because it was like, oh, this ship has 8,000 cannons and yours has 2. You can't fight them. And it's like, okay, how about I board?
Right.
It's like, now it's normal combat, and I beat the shit out of them because I'm the player. So it's like, I don't know. There's probably ways they prevented that in certain, I don't know. I don't remember for sure. But they tried different things with Deadfire, and I appreciate that, but it wasn't as good, but it's still good. And so with Avowed, I think a bunch of people are going to be introduced to this world that maybe haven't been introduced beforehand. So I'm really excited for that, because the Pillars games are more of a niche. They're like old school isometric RPGs.
Yeah.
But Avowed is more of a, it's that first person, people are comparing it to Outer Worlds, but like fantasy, which I'm all over, which sounds great. So it's like, yeah, I'm really excited for like you and other. Did you play the Pillars games?
No, never played Pillars.
Yeah, so I'm like super excited for like you to like get introduced to this world.
This is the post Baldur's Gate 3 world now. So
yeah, so
everybody wants a tactical RPGs. But I understand this is a first person game, but it can take another genre of a series to get people interested in the the world and the other games as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is like maybe like Helldivers 2, because it's a bit of a more general audience style game. It's more of a mass popular. I'm not sure what phrase I'm trying to use here. It's a game that's more that appeals more to larger markets because it's a first person action game, whatever. I think that'll not only perhaps get people interested in playing Pillars, and if they like Pillars, all of a sudden it's, oh man, maybe I should try out the first Baldur's Gate, Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like me, and your backlog includes Neverwinter Nights and Neverwinter Nights 2, and like all these other free Planescape Torment, all these other old school RPGs that you need to get to eventually. But also, and we'll talk about Obsidian here in a second. But sorry.
Just what sucks is if those people do want to go back to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 that are console players, they now have to pay a pretty penny for those games physically.
Yeah. They are nice on the Switch, though. They do work pretty well.
For $85?
Whoa, what? Where are you seeing that?
And that's how much it goes for on the secondhand market.
Oh, on the set. Okay, but you can get it on Steam.
Yeah, but I said console players.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, okay, I understand.
I know you can get it digitally for cheaper, but people love their physical, man.
Yeah, they do. I have I got one from a place called a Fallout Games. I got a Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 for Switch. Yeah.
I remember
There was some super sexy guy behind the counter.
It wasn't me.
It was a jazz voice. He was like, let me get your game for you.
No, it wasn't me.
Maybe I'll look him up one day, start a podcast with him. No, but anyway, and if you're a fan of a lot of Pillars fans want to see a Pillars 3. And so if Avowed does really well, if it generates enough interest in the brand, in the world, I think a Pillars 3 could be something that could totally happen. Josh Sawyer, who I think is the creative director of both of them, has talked about, he said at one point in an interview somewhere, he said he saw the budget for Baldur's Gate 3, and if he could have that budget, he would make Pillars 3. Now, part of me thinks that was a joke, because it's like, oh, okay, Josh, yeah, here's a $200 million budget. Right. Sure, yeah, just make what you want. For it. But maybe he was being sincere. I really don't know. It sounded like it was kind of a joke, because it's like, yeah, if you had $200 million, you could do all kinds of stuff. Sure. But if Avowed generates enough interest, it would be great to see people Pillars become like a much bigger thing. And we'll talk about its relationship to Obsidian, because it's Pillars of Eternity is really important in Obsidian's history specifically, and we have a story about Obsidian later. Okay, so you haven't been playing much?
If you want to hear a tiny bit of what's going on in Star Rail.
I mean, you can share it if you want. I like your enthusiasm and your passion for Star Rail, and how excited you get about all the characters and all the twists and stuff. And I just feel bad because it's like if I don't know, if I told you about a scene in the middle of Star Wars somewhere.
Right, yeah.
And they had these speeders and they were going around mechs, and you're like, oh, that sounds cool. I don't know what's in relation to anything else.
I don't have 200 hours on me right now.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's 3.0. I think we're on 3.0 for Star Rail now. Okay. And so this introduces a new celestial system called Amphorius. Amphorius? I can't remember. But it's a planetary system that's cloaked somehow. They don't know how it is cloaked, but it appeared. Something forced it to appear, and it has a resource on it that the main train that you're on needs in order to continue your journey. Mm-hmm. So you send the main character and someone else down there, and when you get there, I love when they do stuff like this. But you begin to, of course, search around everywhere, and as the player, like me, not the main character, you begin to see that the planet that we're now visiting is very, very much themed after Greek mythology.
Oh, okay.
So in Star Rail, there are eons that are basically like the gods of D&D. That's what they would like essentially represent. But in this planetary system, they have their own gods, which are the Titans, that do different things. And I think there's 12 of them. And of course, it's the beginning of the story, so lots of terms being thrown around that you do eventually get. But it seems like what's happening is they're trying to get the core of the souls of each of the Titans together, and there's 12 of them to like break a curse that they're doing.
Oh, okay.
And they already have 6 of them, I think. So there's like a Titan of time. There's a Titan of
is there a reality gym and a
possibly
and a time gym, a reality gym, and I forget what the other
one they
gyms
keep
were.
talking about is like the time one.
Okay.
But there's this a little girl who she has 3 versions of her that are all named something different, and she, at least in my eyes, very much represents like the Sisters of Fate.
Oh, okay.
Because but they're not always together. They're like kind of off, always doing something. But when they're together, it's kind of like, oh, I see what you're doing here. And like one of the main women, Aglaea, she's like a garment maker, and so her powers are kind of neat. She calls out a mannequin that like and she like fights with threads and uses electro. I really love that everyone around the world can kind of take already pre-established like stories and stuff and just kind of like fiddle with them for a bit. So a lot of times they're just very obvious, like the little girl, like, okay, you're the Sisters of Fate, like I get it. But there are lots of other ideas that you can come up with to kind of how will this person fight? How will this person represent another figure in the past? I'm enjoying it so far. I haven't gotten like super knee deep into what it'll be about or what the problem eventually will be, or if there's any like villains, twists and turns yet. But it seems pretty cool so far. Most of all, the interesting thing is there being other gods inside of this planetary system compared to the actual ones that are universal. So
Sure.
I want to see how that kind of plays out or what the deal is behind that. Because the land is very cool. It's obviously, once again, Greek inspired. So there's lots of columns and pillars and stuff.
Sure.
But the main, when you walk in, the main set piece in the middle is just huge, gigantic, basically like Atlas.
Okay.
He's holding up
the
like
world,
a statue,
a
but
globe.
it's holding up a globe. But he has 4 arms. So the 2 arms are holding up a globe, but the other 2 arms have their hands out, and there's like lava or something flowing off of them, like going down. So
that's a neat visual.
it's a very, very cool visual, and already I can look at it and be like, that's where the thing is. Like, because every planet you visit, there's something called the Stellaron, which is extremely powerful force of some sort. And it can devastate a planet, or it can, make it fruitful. But it's always in something or somewhere. And so it's kind of like, oh, there it is. I could be wrong, but we'll see. But yeah, that's what's going on with Star Wars right now.
In a funny fact about Greek gods.
Oh my God.
In Star Trek, the Greek gods are actually an alien race.
I believe it.
That came to one of the early not Next Generation, one of the early original series episodes. They meet Zeus, or I forget who it is, and it turns out that the Greek gods weren't actually, it's literally ancient aliens. They're not gods. They were just aliens that came down and were like, hey, we're going to teach you how to be men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they just took them for gods, but it's actually it's actually just this alien race that looks human.
I mean,
in a recent episode of Lower Decks, which hilariously enough is the best new Star Trek show of them all.
It's very interesting. I don't know why, but like every time I saw Lower Decks, I was like, man, is Tyler gonna like this? It takes not to say it takes liberties, but it's just
it does.
Oh, it does take liberties. Okay.
But anyway, in the latest episode, there was a character who was one of this race, and it was kind of funny. No, Lower Decks is good because it understands Star Trek, so it pokes fun at it in a way that somebody who loves Star Trek would poke fun at Star Trek.
Okay, good.
And I think it also understands the core of Star Trek. So it's like there are episodes where like the entire premise of an episode is making fun of like for example, there's an episode where they get stuck in a cave And there's lots of Star Trek episodes called, known as cave episodes. It's like, we're short on budget. What do we do? Characters get stuck in a cave, and they have to figure that out. So it's like in this Lower Decks episode, it's like, oh man, we're in a cave episode. Like, it's very funny and very self-referential and fourth wall breaky. But no, it's a show that it's okay that it's funny and it takes liberties, because the idea was never it was going to be like a straight Star Trek show.
Yeah, of course.
But there are moments where you can tell it understands sort of the core of Star Trek about exploration, cooperation, stuff like that. Which for other shows like Picard, I won't name any names, Star Trek Picard does not understand. But anyway, there's a long story short, there's a character in a Lower Decks episode that is a race, and this race is the Greek gods. And it's if you go back and you watch the one in the 1960s, it's very campy, it's very cheesy, but it's Will Shatner, just Will Shatnering it up, and it's fantastic. But
wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. So I finished the first Mass Effect, and I gotta say the first Mass Effect, while I think ambitious for its time, has not aged all that well. I think some of the writing is good, but a lot of the writing is also kind of rough. It was like the first game I can remember where you pick and I mentioned this last week, where you pick a dialogue option and then Shepard says something that you did not intend for Shepard to say. And that happens all over the place. It's incredibly repetitive. Like every building you go, there's like 4 different buildings, maybe 3.
That is right.
So when you go into a building, it has the same exact layout. Many of the missions are really similar. The planets can be kind of similar. It's just they sort of change the colors out. But for its time, it was ambitious in its characters and everything it was trying to do. The combat can get kind of messy because it's this cover-based combat, but enemies, whether they are the husks, which makes sense that they're rushing you, or enemies with guns, they all just rush you. So it just becomes like an insane melee where everybody's using biotic powers and it's just a complete mess. So I really enjoy going back to the first Mass Effect. You can see a lot of the... I don't know. If I were to play Knights of the Old Republic, and then I were to play something like Dragon Age Origins, I am curious if those games aren't a little more eloquently written and don't have a little bit more than Mass Effect. Because like the first Baldur's Gate is so well written, is so good, it's so interesting. So it's like they had the writing chops then. And I think Drew, the lead writer, Drew, I can see SM something. I don't remember.
You want me to find out?
Nah, it's fine.
All right.
But I don't think he wrote any other. I don't know the history. The point I'm trying to get to here is I'm curious how Mass Effect compares to other contemporary BioWare games of its time, right?
Okay.
And I would just be curious to do that, to put it into that kind of context. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I'm glad I finished it. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to play anything because Avowed's coming up. So I finished Mass Effect. Good job, me. Now I'm going to play Avowed. But real quick, I'll just build my character in Mass Effect 2.
Okay.
I might as well get through the tutorial. I might as well go get Garrus, and now I'm like 15 hours in, and now I'm like 20 hours into Mass Effect 2, and having a good time.
That's great.
I'm not sure how I'm going to balance it out with Avowed, but Mass Effect 2 is better. The cover system actually matters. Enemies don't just rush you. It is a bit of a less of a RPG, it feels like, and maybe a little bit closer to an action game. If you... In the first Mass Effect, if you came across a satellite and you didn't have anyone on your team that had an electronics skill, you wouldn't be able to open it. You had to have someone with a high enough electronics skill to open that satellite. That's a very RPG-like thing, right? And Mass Effect 2, as far as I can tell, there are no electronic skills or anything like that. It's mini games. When you hack something or when you unlock something, it's a mini game.
Fun mini game. I like it.
There is no persuasion. Instead, it's the more Paragon or Renegade points you get. You get to choose the Paragon dialogue option if it's there, as opposed to having high persuade. Therefore, you can choose the persuasion option in the dialogue, right? Which is a change I'm not a huge fan of, because I think putting points into persuasion is role playing, because it's like, well, I want to be able to talk my way out of situations. And maybe that's because you want to be the smooth talking swashbuckler, or maybe that's because you want to be, Jean-Luc Picard, whatever. But either way, it's, I want to talk my way out of things. Yes. So when you remove that and you just go to Paragon, I don't know. I guess it's essentially the same thing, but it doesn't, to me, it tracks a bit differently.
That makes absolute sense, because this was late 2000, Mass Effect 2 was 2009, I think. And
2010 maybe? I don't know.
Whatever. But anyways, that was 100% the time where you make a game, it becomes a hit, you change the sequel. So you could tell they shaved off pretty much all the RPG elements, most of them, into six different
there's not
ones,
very many tiers.
Not that many tiers. They lessened they, from what I remember, expanded the speech trees.
Yeah.
But they don't expand the it's basically, blue or red. Yeah, like you said, the Paragon or Renegade. But it is just like Dead Space 1, straight horror. Dead Space 2, now it's action horror. Aliens, yeah. And so this is kind of what they seem to have. It went over people's heads that Mass Effect 1 was more of an RPG than it was a shooter. Mm-hmm. And they course corrected.
Sure.
And went, okay, this is a shooter now with RPG elements.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I will say that the one thing I always liked in Mass Effect that I don't remember, Mass Effect 2, that I don't remember in any other games now that I think about it, is the Paragon or Renegade option mid dialogue. So it's like someone will be talking,
and you can just do something,
and you could do something,
interrupt them,
interrupt them or whatever. Like if someone's threatening you, the Renegade option could be that Shepard pulls out their pistol or whatever. That's really cool, and that is role playing.
Yeah,
and it's not just putting stats into something; it's saying, hey, if you want to be a badass, now's the time to do it, and you have to decide right then and there. So not only is it improvisational, but you also lean into the kind of Shepard you want to be.
Right.
So that's really cool as well. But the writing in Mass Effect 2 is better. The characters are a little more well-rounded. I will say that I didn't realize how much of the Mass Effect universe was a dystopia. I guess I probably should have guessed that after the first game and hearing about slaves and stuff. But everything was kind of clean in the first Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2 is a little bit dirtier in that you go to these slum places where there's gangs, and in the first Mass Effect you're on the Citadel and you explore, planets. You're not really going to these back alley, drug and gang places, but you're doing that in Mass Effect 2. And the racism is still there, which is very interesting. So. It's a very paranoid, it's a very prejudiced universe. And I think, again, that's because everybody needs to figure out how to sort of come together against the Reapers. But I'm enjoying it. One of the things that I find interesting is Shepard's relationship to Cerberus. So you are essentially a private military company with a massive corporation that does a lot of different things. But Shepard gets kind of roped into doing their private military stuff now. So but you don't have a choice because nobody else is taking the Reaper threat seriously. So it's like, what do you do there?
Except the Elusive Man.
Except the Elusive, and that's the problem: is the Elusive Man, who is this weird pro-human zealot. At the same time, it's like he's the only guy that's taking the Reaper threat seriously.
Really interesting, too.
That puts you in a weird spot. So how does the game handle that? Thus far, I think it handles it pretty well. I think it handles it okay because you're given opportunities to sort of rebel against the Elusive Man in certain ways. And there doesn't seem to be any major consequences, but there's little things the Elusive Man's like, go to this. We had a operative on this base. go find his data, and you go there, and pirates killed him and took the data. So you kill the pirates. Now you have the data. You can upload it to the Alliance to like reveal the crimes Cerberus has been doing, or you can give it back to the Elusive Man. So like I uploaded it to the Alliance because I'm like, hey man, I'll help you take down the Reapers, but after that, I'm taking you down. Like that's how I'm trying to play it. It's the same thing when you rescue Jack, the super powerful biotic.
Yeah.
She wants to see everything Cerberus has on her. And there's that argument between her and Miranda, where Miranda's like, no, you
Cerberus
don't.
Agent.
Yeah, because Miranda's a Cerberus corpo. And you can give the data to Jack or let Miranda keep it, you know. So Miranda is right out of the gate. She is very unapologetic of like what Cerberus has done and is doing and stuff like that, which is interesting. But anyway, I'll see how the game continues to handle that, because you are I mean, I don't know if I would consider Cerberus a terrorist organization. It's more of a criminal organization, which there are distinctions there, I think, but it's more of like it's a corporation with a military arm, and they get into unethical criminal activity to
get the
benefit their shareholders, which, you know, is dystopian as hell, but it does make for an interesting premise that you kind of have to navigate through the best way you can. So yeah, I'll continue to play that whenever I'm not playing Avowed, starting tomorrow. Yay. But yeah, and then I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I finished Eternal Strands, like I said, Mass Effect 2. I think that's all I'm going to talk about for now, and we'll get into the news if I can find the commercial that here it is. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. It's a good thing that earlier that you had a Honkai Star Rail ready to go, because I could have still been talking about Star Trek right now. So
and that's okay, you know. We're nerds. Don't be ashamed.
So I mean, it was a dangerous spin we were in, and we reverse ruddered and we got out of it. I've also been playing flight sims, but that doesn't matter. Okay, Obsidian says it won't chase profit or grow aggressively. Obsidian's VP of Ops Marcus Morgan and VP of Development Justin Birch gave a talk at DICE about sustainability. DICE's theme this year was Built to Last. I'm going to read a portion of DICE's website describing what Built to Last means. Quote, looking at the pillars of sustainability, responsibility, and technological innovation, this year DICE will explore how we innovate for longevity and create with a conscience, moving toward a vibrant, resilient, and responsible future. How do we leverage cutting-edge tools to empower without diminishing human talent? How do we foster continued growth without sacrificing well-being? Together, we will examine the immediate and long-term strategies that best serve everyone and allow interactive entertainment to thrive, building world-changing, immersive, and inclusive experiences. PC Gamer's Tyler Wilde, I believe, was at DICE. I'm not sure, because DICE doesn't release their talks for like a year. It's kind of like GDC, how it's like they're not public for like a year or whatever. But he reported on the talk, and I'm going to read a bit what he said about it. Okay, so this is again Morgan and Birch of Obsidian talking, and then Wilde describing their talk. So them talking, one of the pillars of the plan is staying lean and invested, and this is Wilde, meaning small enough that none of Obsidian's employees feel like a cog in a machine. Morgan and Birch said that in recent years they'd been considering opening multiple international offices, but in the end decided to partner with existing studios rather than risk weakening Obsidian's culture by getting too big. Leanness can also refer to Obsidian's games. It doesn't aim for unprecedented scale or the most advanced graphics, and before it greenlights a game, Bert says the studio spends a lot of time determining how much to invest in the project with the assumption that it will be a mild success not a smash hit. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here, and I looked for it. I'm fairly certain DICE talks, like GDC talks, they're not available to the public for like a year or whatever.
Oh, got it.
But I found this whole thing really interesting.
Yeah,
because we've talked about sustainability a lot. And yeah, I have a few thoughts on Obsidian, but if you have like off the top.
Well, just exactly what we're probably going to about to get into right now, and we've said it before many times. These companies need to have what they want to do, already thought out and well planned. For the smaller companies that make great games like Obsidian, they don't need to reach higher than they should. They don't need to make the biggest and the best. And it sounds like they have a good idea of the structure they want to keep before things get out of hand, because that's the one thing that we see get out of hand is you start to make a game, and it sounds like a lot of these AAA developers make the game as they go along and are thinking about stuff, and then halfway through they go, well, maybe this isn't going to work, and then they kind of lose that time, lose that money, lose those workers, and then the next time you figure out what you want to do, you're going to be working twice as hard, twice as long, to spend twice as much money
to make up that time.
Yeah. So it sounds like whoever is the leads of these projects all understand how to lead projects, and we're able to get games like Avowed. I feel like, I know it's been a while, but I feel like when they showed off and launched, or showed off the launch trailer for Avowed and now release, it doesn't feel like it was that long.
Well, I remember the announcement trailer was a couple of years ago.
I think it's about 3 years ago, maybe.
Maybe, but you are correct. And like the first trailer with gameplay doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now we're here on the eve of Avowed's release, and it sounds like it's going to at least once again be a moderate hit, which is exactly what they want.
Yeah, and we had this and you mentioned it. We had the same conversation last week with like Sony Pictures Classics, Picture Classics, right? Yes. This division of Sony that does not make huge, big budget movies or anything like that. They make small movies. They have a certain market set up for it, and they scale. Their entire business scales to fit that market, right? So they're not out there with $300 million budgets. That's not what Sony Picture Classic or Sony Picture Classics, whatever. That's not what it's made to do. And I think there's worth in that, because then you can create things that cannot exist in an ecosystem where everything has to be $300 million. This really makes me think, because one, Phil Spencer has talked about the autonomy that Xbox gives their studios.
Yes.
I think that's a fascinating...
Which is something we not necessarily criticized, but we were kind of wary about.
Yes. I'm still wary about it, because you don't know when the winds change. You don't know when all of a sudden somebody at Microsoft wants something done a different way.
Right.
So consolidation is never good, but if they are going to be consolidated, I would rather have Xbox allowing these teams to have longer leashes. Now, a part of that is because eventually, Obsidian's riding high right now. Grounded, Outer Worlds 2 is going to release this year. So Obsidian's going to have two releases this year. And Avowed, right?
Yeah.
So Obsidian's going to be making money. Obsidian's going to be doing really well for themselves. But eventually Obsidian's going to make a game that's going to be bad. And that's not because they're not talented. Of course they are. It's just because that happens. Everybody makes a bad song. Everybody plays a bad game. Everybody makes a bad game every now and then.
And also, I mean, I think a game from them will be bad due to expectations.
Probably, yeah.
Because there's still... Outer Worlds is a great example. Outer Worlds, I believe, by and large, is a very good game. But there are lots of people who criticize it because it's not what they wanted, because everyone was expecting Fallout New Vegas in space or something like that.
Yeah.
They didn't exactly get that. But anyways...
So I was going to say, if you're giving these studios autonomy, then I also think you have to allow course corrections when they go wrong, right? When something doesn't work. So if you're going to allow them to take risks, if you're going to allow them to, set the scale to how they want to do it, stuff like that, then when they do make a mistake, when they do something poorly, you have to give them that room to course correct, you know, because if you just give them the autonomy to make their own decisions, and that's the first sign of trouble, you pull back the reins and take control, then how much of that autonomy was actually, you know, legitimate or worthwhile. And I think we're kind of dealing with that in BioWare, with EA and BioWare right now. But I do think it's interesting that Obsidian, I don't know, it's just, I have a lot of thoughts, because BioWare and Obsidian are sort of kindred spirits in a way, right?
Yes.
Not just has Obsidian worked on...
I would say they're brothers, like, and
sure.
it, you know.
not just has Obsidian worked on BioWare titles like KOTOR 2 and stuff like that, but they have a history of making similar games, RPGs, etc., right? And they both have long histories. But one of them is like writing high right now, the other one isn't, and that makes for an interesting comparison. With Obsidian, back in the early 2010s, Obsidian was in a really tough spot because they had a game just canceled with Xbox, and they didn't really know what the studio was going to do, so they had to come up with some kind of idea. I don't know if it's overdramatic to say to save the studio, but Pillars of Eternity did help the studio out, to put it lightly, right? Because they launched a Kickstarter for it. The Kickstarter was super successful, and then Pillars of Eternity was successful from there, right? So I think that gave the studio sort of a, like, I don't want to be overdramatic, but my perception is that it was like they were sort of climbing upstairs, they got tired, and they got a second wind with Pillars of Eternity, and they've been writing it since. Now, obviously, they've made other games. It's not just they made Pillars and rested on their laurels. There's Tyranny, Deadfire, what's the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids one? Grounded, yes. So it's like they've been doing different stuff, and then they were acquired by Xbox. I forget precisely when, but so it's like, I don't know, that model, that format, I'm curious if that's not a part of the future, right? And I don't know if they would count themselves as AA. I don't think so. Like, I don't know. I don't know what. It's tough to say if I would count Outer Worlds as AA. If I'll put it this way, if one of the lead designers on that, I forget who was the lead designer. I know Tim Kaine worked on it. If Tim Kaine walked up and said, "Oh no, Outer Worlds was AA," I'd be okay. And if he said, "Oh no, Outer Worlds was AAA," I'd be like, okay. Yeah. By his definition, whatever. The point I'm trying to make here is, I'm not sure, like, but they're kind of close, and we often say that we need sort of this AA renaissance somehow. Is what Obsidian is doing AA? I don't know, but it certainly seems like it's not full-on Ubisoft AAA, where it's gigantic, massive, everywhere, super duper expensive, right? So if they're not doing that, then is what they're doing sustainable? Is what they're doing something that's like studios like BioWare could emulate? And would EA allow them to emulate that structure? I'm trying to think of other studios off the top of my head, but I'm doing...
Me too. I had a problem thinking of studios. So.
I don't know. Maybe somebody like... Machine Games, right? They just made Indiana Jones. But maybe they have more capital because they're connected to Bethesda. I'm not sure there. But the point I know I keep saying this. The thing I'm trying to get back to is there a model here that studios could follow? And what about Yellowbird Games that just made Eternal Strands, right? Yeah. That was an indie. They published that independently. Yeah. So it's like, if you're Yellowbrick, I'm pretty sure Eternal Strands did pretty well for the studio. And you're looking around at the industry and going, okay, what do we do next? It's 2024. We just released our first game that we made 4 years. People are buying studios left and right. Do we get acquired? Do we stay indie? Do we make a sequel? Do you look at Obsidian and say, hey, we could do something like Obsidian. We could keep our scale down. We could keep it, manage it here. And we could do something similar to what Obsidian is doing. And maybe that's how you find your niche, and that's how and you don't have to expand. You don't have to get big because there's a market for $40 games, $50 games, right? I think Eternal Strands was $40. So there's a market for that kind of thing. You don't have to hit a home run and go straight to your next game being a $69.99, you know,
right,
a big holiday blockbuster or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I am passionate about this because I think Obsidian is one of those special developers that has a lot of people that have been there for a long time. And I think is an example, and listen, I'm sure they've had cultural problems. I'm sure their past is not perfect, but is an example of, like, I don't know, if I were to pick how the games industry were to be run, I would want it like Obsidian. I want more Obsidians around, right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does make sense. And I think a big, not problem, but something I'm noticing, and I'm sure you're noticing too, is that the line of what's AA and what's AAA is very much blurring.
Yes.
Yes. Because if I've thought of some other ones, obviously South of Midnight, Compulsion Games.
Oh yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
It's another AA studio that's producing a game that does not look AA. It looks AAA in my opinion.
And Avowed looks AAA too.
Avowed looks AAA. Yes.
Avowed $70. Yeah.
We'll talk about it in a moment for the next story, but the first game from the studio called Eclipse Glow Games, Tides of Annihilation, absolutely looks AAA. It does not look AA. And I did have another one on my head, and I forgot it. But
those are two good examples.
No, definitely. But Eclipse Expedition 33.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that one is also a French studio. More than AAA. That game looks does not look like it should exist. But yeah, we have this these labels on games that are completely arbitrary, and the discussion should be just plain and simply, is the game good or not? But we have a long way to go to get to that. And I think that the one way to keep quality is to just know what you're doing and keep focused on whatever game you're making. But I know that's tough for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I know that in the past, there was that historical, and it may still be a thing, that historical trend of a game releases, and then as a game gets near release, you hire on a bunch of staff to finish it, right? Game releases, all of a sudden you've got 50 developers who don't need to be there because they were brought on to help ship something. So what do? Well, you lay them off or whatever.
Right.
So instead of that ebb and flow, can you keep like a set number? And instead of expanding to become bigger and bigger, are you able to keep a set number? I remember reading about Irrational, right?
Yeah, Irrational.
Like the story of Irrational is BioShock Infinite. They released BioShock Infinite. Ken Levine leaves because they just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So he leaves, and I think there were layoffs right around the time he left.
Right.
So it was a really sucky situation. He went and did Ghost Story, and they're working on Judas right now.
Yes.
And as far as we know, Ghost Story is a really small team, like relatively small, within 2K, and it sounds like 2K is giving them reign to do what they want.
Yes,
remember that story where Ken Levine said we're a rounding error?
Yes, yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, is that, if you can convince, if companies with gigantic hits like Madden, like GTA, if we can create sacrifices to the live service god, if we could create these sacrifices to the live service gods, where you give up a game and it gets torn apart and eaten alive by some terrifying Cthulhu or something, but because of that, 4 AA developers get to make cool RPGs. Yeah. Is that the future of the games industry? I don't know, but then the problem is, you're betting a lot on that sacrificial lamb to appease the game gods.
You sure are,
Yes. So that means when one of EA's sports games has a bad quarter, all of a sudden, you have trouble at BioWare or something. But I don't know. Anyway, yeah. The other studio I thought of was Remedy.
I wanted to name Remedy.
Yeah. And I actually did a little bit of research because I was curious.
Oh, okay.
Because I know Remedy is a public company, and Remedy because we always see report, and like Alan Wake 2 just became profitable like
yes.
last week.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. And they still haven't released on Steam though, so that card is still to play, if they ever do it.
I hope so.
Me too. But so Remedy has their shareholders just on their website, and I had no idea. But Remedy is owned, like the top 2 shareholders are Sam Lake and another one of their founders, who I forget the guy's name.
Oh, cool.
Mackey. He's relatively famous, but I can't remember his name. But anyway, so like Larian, Remedy is public, but it is owned by the people who are part of the creative DNA. So like Larian is a private company, so they don't have to deal with the public stuff. But they have, like, Tencent partially owns Baldur's Gate 3, but Sven Vick, I forget his name.
Yeah.
He's also a shareholder
part
in Larian,
owner. Okay.
part owner. So it's like, I don't know. That's a good way to do things, but obviously that's much easier said than done. Just because you start a studio and own part of it doesn't mean it's going to be successful.
Right.
But I don't know. There is that gives me kind of a hope, I guess, because it's like, I don't know, if I were to pick create an ideal games industry, I would want Obsidians and Larians and Remedies where they're able to sustainably make games at a sustainable pace, get money from different sectors. And of course, part of the problem is that you don't know what is subsidized. So like, for example, I don't know how much Epic paid Remedy to have Alan Wake 2 exclusive on the Epic Game Store, right?
Right, yeah.
But the only reason Epic has that much money is because of the engine and because Fortnite. So it's like, the live service titans, by their grace, they will give upon you, their abundance. But their abundance comes from this ungodly thing that's subsidized, right? So I don't know. Man, this stuff is interesting though, and it's fascinating. But I'm super excited for Avowed. I'm glad it's getting good reviews. I cannot wait to jump in. I want to finish the video before I jump in, so I don't have to think about it. But is there anything else you want to mention about this before we move on?
No, I don't. I'm just I am excited for Avowed. I am excited for Outer Worlds 2, and I really hope that younger devs or somewhat younger developers who get into the leadership position understand what makes a good game and understand what it takes to make a good game.
Oh, that was the other thing about Obsidian is so Mark Dara has talked about this with BioWare, how since Anthem you had he left and a couple of other people left. So Dara was at BioWare since he was there basically its entire life almost before the first Baldur's Gate, but not BioWare's first game was
in the PC golden age.
In the late 90s. So think about all that institutional knowledge, right? That left when Mark Dara left, right?
Yeah.
And he's not the only one. There were other longtime people, right? So think about Obsidian. Obsidian's been open for such a long time. You have people like Josh Sawyer, right? I believe Fergus, I can never pronounce his last name correctly. Urquhart, I don't remember. He's a super famous guy. It's like not being able to pronounce Peyton Manning's name or something, but he's still there, right? He's one of the co-founders, or maybe the founder, I don't remember. Carrie Patel, who is, I believe, the creative director on Avowed, she was a novelist and she was brought on to work on Pillars of Eternity, right? So this game is being led by somebody who was brought on to work on Pillars in 2013. So again, you have this thing that's been around, institutional knowledge. They were able to nurture somebody. That somebody is now leading their own game.
That's very
at
cool.
Obsidian, right?
Yeah.
And that's great because then what you're doing is now you have more people with long institutional knowledge of how to make games, how to ship games, whatever. And I think that buffers and strengthens your studio culture.
Yeah,
because now instead of a bunch of people in leadership roles who have okay experience, you have a bunch of people in leadership roles who know what the hell they're doing, right? And it's not that those people with limited experience don't care. It's of course they care. It's just they don't necessarily have the experience. But I think that has to help Obsidian is because yes, they've had layoffs. It's not a company that's been impervious to the economy, But because they've I don't know if they've ever had an Anthem situation in the past 10 years, and because they've kept all that institutional knowledge, that has to help in when they decide to make sustainability decisions. Having all that institutional knowledge has to help with that, I imagine, which other studios like BioWare now may struggle with, because there's some people that have been there a long time, but a lot of people that haven't. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but that's a different discussion. And I'm going off on a gajillion tangents now. Mark Dara on the show next week.
Once again.
Once again on the show next week. Go watch our interview with Mark Dara if you've never seen it. Because we covered a lot of ground. And he was super nice.
Hey, I asked a question, okay?
And he fielded all kinds of questions. He was super graceful, because every 5 seconds I was like, okay, Dara, how about this? Are you done answering? Okay, how about this? It was like asking a history professor, tell me about the medieval kingdoms. Tell me about ancient Greece. Okay, now tell me about the American West. Now tell me about the history of pudding. It's just some history professor just fielding random questions. Okay, so we're going to recap State of Play real quick. Trailers for a lot of different stuff. I wrote down a few. Sonic Racing Crosswinds, the Midnight Walk, which looks terrifying.
Actually, another AA game that looks AAA.
Is it? What's this?
Is it AA? I've never heard that. I'm sure that's the studio's first game.
Is that the studio's first game?
Midnight Walk. All right, let's do it.
Because I'll admit, I have no idea who's developing it. I completely forgot. Borderlands 4, there's an indie game. Just kidding. Hell Is Us. Days Gone Remastered with new content. That's another one. And then Saros by Housemarque. That was the big one for me.
Midnight Walk is their very first game. From developer Moonhood.
Oh, can I make a guess who the publisher might be? Because it's not owned by Sony, is it?
Nope.
Is it Kepler?
Nope.
Dang it. Who is it?
Fast Travel Games.
Fast Travel Games. I'm unaware.
However, when I click on their studio and it shows what games they made, it does say the Midnight Walk, and right under it says VR supported.
Yeah, I know. Which, if you watch that trailer, I don't know if I can play that in VR.
That thing looks rad. It looks very cool. Borderlands 4 looks like Borderlands.
Oh yeah, but which is fine. All I want from Borderlands is Borderlands.
It looks like a lot more mobility though.
So
like a lot of.
Did it?
Watch it again. Like, there's a lot of like sliding and jumping and like kind of like.
And it did look like some of it looked like they were in a mech. They weren't, but at times it kind of, I don't know, just the UI
might have been the character.
I don't know, maybe, but anyway, yeah. Hell Is Us looks interesting. No idea what that's about. Days Gone Remastered. So we're getting a remastered Days Gone. I feel kind of bad for Days Gone stans who have always wanted a sequel, because I imagine there was at least a couple people watching that. They saw Ben Studio.
Yeah.
And for a second, for a fleeting second, they were like, oh my God.
We got it. This is us.
And then the slow realization clicked in as it was like, oh, it's just a remaster. Oh, okay. Oh, no. Saros, we don't know a whole lot about it, but that's another.
I would assume that it definitely has a tie into Returnal.
Seems like it.
I don't understand how it could not.
Yeah.
But a lot of their games, like Matterfall, is very. That could be, Returnal based, adjacent. A lot of their games have that sci-fi esque.
Yep.
Did they make Dead Nation?
I don't know.
I would love another Dead Nation.
The only other Housemarque game I can think of is Nex Machina, which was
really good.
With that.
They did
soundtrack.
make Dead Nation.
Wow, nice. Okay.
God,
and that was before the other one, right? That you just mentioned.
Yes.
Because that one was a PS4 game.
Stardust.
Wait, no, Housemarque made. Was it Resogun?
Yeah, they did Resogun.
They did Resogun. Okay.
They made. They've changed their name a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, in 93 they did Stardust, and in 94 they did Super Stardust. And they used to be called Bloodhouse, apparently. Then they went to Terramark in 1994, and then they went to Housemarque in 96.
Oh, interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Resogun was pretty good, too.
Outland was really good.
Never played it.
Outland was a 360 PS3 arcade game, and it was a platformer. But as you traverse the levels, you had, there's a shoot 'em up called Ikaruga, where you have to like flip your ship to white or black. Your character had to flip between white and black to avoid the bullets. That was the same thing. Yeah, it was really
that sounds rad. That sounds cool.
They did Alienation as well, which was a little difficult. That game was a little difficult.
Okay. But Saros, so it's just an announcement trailer.
Yes.
But my favorite part was the end because a guy, some astronaut dude, I don't know, with a sci-fi armor and sci-fi gun, he walks up to an ocean. There's like a demon lady comes out of the ocean, and then right before it ends, in the main character's eyes, you see a spin of orbs. So it's like, okay, orb dodging, slow projectiles. Of course, that's what I'm talking about. That makes me happy because that was so good in Returnal.
It was.
Returnal was a really good game, but it definitely felt like something where they came up with it real quickly. I don't know.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I don't want to say too quickly, but I think they leaned on the abstraction pretty hard. Like how abstract the storytelling was, and it was very like obtuse. Which I did not need to get through the game because it was by and large all about the gameplay. But they did have a very good grasp on how to create atmosphere.
Yes. Oh, hell yeah.
Especially in a third-person game, but they also and fear at some points. I did not want to go into that house the very first time.
No, I've never been so afraid of an astronaut.
That too. But yeah, even after beating it the first time, and I understand there is, still like not secret ending, but extended endings and stuff like that. I don't believe they could have expanded storytelling a little bit. But I understand that's not their strong suit. Housemarque has always been about the gameplay. Yeah,
and Housemarque, because they were making, I know we've talked about this a lot too, they were making during the Battle Royale boom.
Craze, yeah.
They were making like a sci-fi Battle Royale. And I remember being really sad because I was like, oh man, they're
selling out.
Well, because I remember that statement they made that like, look, no one's buying arcade games anymore. We can't do it. And I was like, damn, I felt bad for them. And so then they announced their Battle Royale game. And it was like, oh man, like, could this be it? Where they released some bad Battle Royale game? And then they went silent, bought by PlayStation, and all of a sudden, Returnal. And it was like, what the hell? How did this happen? That must have been, I'm sure there's probably a story somewhere. Somebody has had to write that up because that few years for Housemarque must have just been insane.
Very worrisome, yeah.
Because you go from a point where your studio, it is like another Pillars of Eternity type story.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you're looking like things are dire. You're not sure what the future has. You don't want to say some of the worst things out loud. And then all of a sudden, you get a call from, I guess at that point would be
Shuhei Yoshida.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, oh yeah, sure, we'll make a game for you, thank God. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, we're also a launch title, And as far as launch titles go, pretty good.
Very good. And I think that people underestimate the there's a lot of little shooter games that people really grasp onto. For the 360 era, it was Geometry Wars. It was a real big one. I think Resogun helped PS4 a little bit. I'm not going to say it like changed the course of like, people buying a PS4 or anything, but as one of the like first games to kind of have to hold over until, Infamous Second Son came out or, what have you.
Killzone Shadowfall.
I think that was a launch title.
Was it a launch title? I don't remember.
I think it was a launch title. But anyways, I think...
I just remember not liking it.
I've never played it, but I've also just can't... I've tried Killzone several times, which is weird because Killzone 1 and 2 I've tried, and I think they're fine, but I'm still, for some reason, strangely like a Killzone 2 defender regarding its graphics. Compared to like the trailer, the trailer that...
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah, you can be mad, but those graphics were pretty close. Pretty good.
Killzone 2, yeah. Well, yeah, and there's a weird story behind that as well, which Danny O'Dwyer covered in the No Clip documentary about it. Yeah, where they were like, "Hey, we need you to send something," and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna send you a trailer." And then apparently they didn't expect Sony to show it off as gameplay, so they were watching it like, we didn't say this was gameplay, so it was like somebody along the line decided to okey doke and make an executive decision, and Guerrilla Games is sitting there terrified because so that was a weird thing. But in any case, I'm so happy to see someone will have to do a story about that Housemarque era. What happened? What was going on? How do they find their way?
Yeah.
Maybe I should look some people up on LinkedIn, get a couple quotes, do some interviews. The story of how Housemarque didn't crash or something like that. This is going to be a hell of a year to release a kart racer.
Oh, a kart racer? I thought you meant just racing games because I was like, I already got a racing game in mind.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking kart racer.
Kart racer, yeah.
I don't know. It's fine, obviously, and I'm sure Sonic Racing will I'm sure it'll do fine, but it's just imagine, I don't know, of all the years to make, you're like, okay, we're gonna release our kart racer this year, everybody, and then like 2 weeks later, you hear that there's the new Mario Kart 9, the first new Mario Kart in a millennium since dinosaurs walked the earth, and you're like, what? Like, are you kidding me? You couldn't have given us a hint, Nintendo. But that kart racer did look kind of fun.
It looked fun. Yeah, it looked fun. I enjoyed the visual aesthetic to it. I enjoyed like all the little nods to all the worlds and stuff. It did look nice. Midnight Walk looked cool. I was huge on the Onimusha trailer. Because my biggest fear was actually subsided, and that does not look like a Souls-like game to me. It actually looks more of an action-based game. And Tides of Annihilation was my game of that show. Like that game looks very rad. And then they actually yesterday put up a 10-minute gameplay showcase. Yep, just 10 straight minutes of actual gameplay, and game looks very good, and it is not a Souls-like either, which is awesome.
I miss action games.
Yes, and
I should play Devil May Cry.
And Devil May Cry is very good. Oh my god. Sorry, Devil May Cry 5. Like,
do you still have it for PS5?
I don't know, but it's on sale on Steam right now for like $9.
Okay, maybe I should pick it up.
Entire collection,
because I miss good old solid action games.
It's you can't go wrong with Devil May Cry. You can't go wrong with Ninja Gaiden Black either, you know.
Anyway, sorry, Tides of Annihilation. I didn't mean to
no, that's okay. Yeah, and of course I was watching that trailer, and I was just like, female main character, all right, off to a great start. And then the action came in. It's like, yeah, all right, I'm getting this. They went by. So
did you recognize the voice actress, the actress?
I did not at first, because I'm very bad at that. I'm very bad at. I'm good at voices when they're pretty recognizable. Steve Bloom, Nolan North, Troy Baker, when they're just doing their normal voice. Yeah. But generally I'm pretty bad at it. But afterwards, I did hear Shadowheart.
Yeah, Shadowheart. Yep.
Which was another plus, because Shadowheart's great. But yeah, anyways, it was solid state of play. There was a lot of disappointment with some of my coworkers and other people I know, because everyone was expecting a Bloodborne announcement of some sort, because they did the DMCA for the Bloodborne patch, and then there was something else that happened that would give more credence to it. So that's a whole thing.
Last time I want to say it was like a rights thing between was it Konami and Sony? I don't remember.
No, Konami had nothing to do with it.
Who published? Wait, Sony published it. So what is the rights thing then?
I don't know. Some with FromSoft, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember now. Anyway, do you think the world needs a Days Gone remastered, or what do you think?
No. I don't think any game from the last generation really needs a remaster. Yeah. Ninja Gaiden Black, completely deserving of it, 100%. And then if it is a remaster, maybe I'm asking for too much. It just needs to be an update. 60 frames a second.
Well, I mean, it already runs. I don't know if you've played it on PS5.
Well, there already was a small.
It runs fine. Yeah. It runs great. It runs awesome. So,
but I just don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's double dipping for Sony, and people. People are already upset because the PS Plus version of it is not going to get the $10 upgrade.
Oh, really?
They've done that every time, though, with every game that's had it. So some people are upset about that. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Which the game itself is like $18 on physical. So
I'm not a big WWE 2K guy.
Yeah.
Last time I played it was maybe 10 years ago. Not a big wrestling guy. I don't have anything against it. I'm just not my thing. I do feel bad though, because the hub area just looks like it just came across like so live servicey.
100%, because they did the same thing with NBA. NBA 2K has the exact same thing.
And they did the State Farm commercial thing. And that just makes me so sad, because I know there are people out there that love wrestling and love the moves and the choreography and the history of it. And that's awesome. And those people deserve a better video game and a better publisher.
Yeah, and that's...
Which sucks. But hey, maybe for Ghost Story Games to exist and Ken Levine to make Judas, this is one of the games that's given up to the live service gods for them to rip apart and drink its blood and keep smaller studios running. I don't know. But I did not watch the Metal Gear Solid Delta trailer. Because... But I saw the one that was like accidentally released or whatever.
I thought it was officially released, but
because it was
I saw it on YouTube. It was like, oh, here it is. And
which I don't know. But I didn't watch this one, so I don't know if this one was
it's the exact same trailer.
Okay, then I have seen
however,
it.
the weird thing is, I guess the Xbox version of the trailer, at the end where it's just Ape Escape, but his name is Peepo.
Yeah.
But where he pops out, because there's a mini game for the Ape Escape thing on the Xbox version. They just showed a banner with the silhouette of Bomberman on it, which I thought was interesting, because there's not they must be making like a Bomberman thing instead of like Ape Escape, since Ape Escape belongs to PlayStation.
Huh, weird.
But I can't wait to play that game. I know it's just Metal Gear Solid 3 again, but it's just make this game but prettier, and then that is it. And that is it, because I think still to this day Metal Gear 3 Subsistence is plays perfectly.
Well, yeah, and I think so I think that one of the things I say a lot about the Metal Gear series is each game has like a natural progression to it. I feel like in my mind, like you can follow as insane as Hideo Kojima is, you can, if you play Metal Gear 1 and then Metal Gear 2, you can see the bridges in the design. Like, let's do this. We did this. Now we're going to do this.
Okay, yeah.
And then from 2 to 3, you can kind of see that. When you're in Metal Gear 2 and you're sneaking through one of the silo things right out in the ocean.
Yes.
It's like, okay, let's take that portion of a level and then let's make it a building with guards outside of it. So it's like, instead of you sneaking through hallways and rooms, now it's like, we're going to take those elements and we're going to make it a little more robust and also a little less linear and a little more open-ended. And that was kind of Metal Gear Solid 3. And then Metal Gear Solid 4 was insane and weird. And I don't know if I want to count that one. But then 5 expanded on the other one for was it the PSP or Vita? It was Vita, right?
No, it was PSP, the Portable Ops.
No, not Portable Ops, the one after that.
Peace Walker.
Peace Walker, yes, because Peace Walker is canon. Portable Ops is
Peace Walker is the sequel to 3.
Yeah. But from Peace Walker, you can see the connective tissue to Metal Gear 5, where they kind of built it out more. So, what I was trying to get to here, though, is even in that lineage, you can see the thought process from 3 to 5. Mm-hmm. So it's like if they took 3 and sort of understood that, which I'm sure they do because they're they're game developers, and I know that they're doing it like a shot-for-shot remake and stuff like that. But I'm curious if they do it just enough to be a little bit like 5, like when it comes to the control scheme and stuff like that. Yeah. I know there's gameplay. I should probably watch some of the gameplay, but it's going to have a third-person camera, correct?
Yes, I hear that anything you wanted from the original, you can switch it to that.
Yeah, okay. I should probably watch gameplay.
So yeah, like even people, I don't know why, whenever I played Metal Gear Solid 3 in the past, I never pay attention to visual things. I don't pay attention to visual things. I'll explain what I mean, and that's essentially what they call the piss filter. So, in Metal Gear Solid 3 and Resident Evil 5 is another good example. Everything is just like brown or like green, like they just put like a sepia filter or whatever filter over it.
Yes.
But when they showed the new Delta and they showed it, like people noticed it was gone, and they're like, "You literally just took away the soul of the game." And it's like, what? Like I couldn't care less. Like
I am so glad that I don't browse the internet as much.
Oh no, for sure, yeah. But and I totally get it. But you can put that filter back on if you want to.
Oh, okay.
So they've done things to keep, I guess, what you would consider the spirit of the original.
Okay.
But they just, for those who want just a brand new experience, it's there as well.
Yeah. Well, the good news is for them that if they were to go from 3, if they were to go to 4, they can do whatever the hell they want if they did Metal Gear Solid 4, because everybody hates Metal Gear Solid 4. But canonically, I liked it too. But I know there are. It's complicated.
It is absolutely more of a movie than it is a game.
But chronologically, the next one would be technically Metal Gear 2, and then Metal Gear Solid. But if they went from Delta, and then they decided, okay, we're going to do this chronologically, so now we're going to remake Metal Gear Solid, that would be interesting. Because Metal Gear Solid is a very old game.
Very old.
So it's like, how do you modernize that? What do you do? I don't know. These questions we're
just musing
pie in the
now.
sky.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting. And then Metal Gear 2 would be similarly challenging, because part of Metal Gear 2 is the subversiveness of it. Yes. How it starts off like perfect, and then you're a whiny Raiden,
he has good reason to be whiny. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, he does. But then it's like, how do you what do you do that? I don't know. So those remakes would be incredibly challenging, just because you're dealing with games that were made so long ago, but the way that they were made was so purposeful and so like so meaningful. So it's
two definitely has a struggle, because as boring as the big shell is, it's quite integral to how the game plays, and you can't really change that.
Yeah.
You make things like easier or less cumbersome, but you can't really, I don't think you could really do much to that game. Metal Gear Solid 1 though, I mean, they did Twin Snakes.
Yeah.
It's just Metal Gear Solid 1, but it plays like 2, but that unfortunately makes things way easier. The game is very easy with that. So yeah, you'd have to revamp the AI, the enemy AI. You'd have to revamp the stealth system, because that stealth was very, 1-2, very by the numbers, and so
just watch out for the view cones. Okay, all right. We don't have tidbits this week.
There is something. Damn it, I closed it. But Shuhei Yoshida said something very interesting. Apparently.
Okay, I'm gonna play the tidbit sound.
Okay, go for it.
What if I told you, in this world, there are bits, and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
If you needed another reason to hate Jim Ryan, Shuhei Yoshida has said that Jim Ryan gave him the choice to either do the indie job or leave PlayStation. So he gave him an ultimatum. And Shuhei Yoshida said, quote, "Moving from first party to indies, well, I had no choice. When Jim asked me to do the indie job, the choice was to do that or leave the company." End quote.
Yeah. And was that with Kind of Funny Games?
That was with
because I know
that was with Dean Takahashi over at VentureBeat.
Okay, because I know he's been doing a couple of interviews as well.
Yeah,
it seems like so. Man,
Rockstar Games is in talks with the top Fortnite and Roblox creators with an eye on making Grand Theft Auto the next creator platform.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
That does make sense. I think it'll work out very well. As much as I don't want this trend to continue, I don't want every game to be a creator game.
That's a whole different discussion. Connor and I had a conversation about that, because like this user-generated content thing, I speculated that this is the next thing, right?
Yeah.
If the live service thing is slowing down, and everyone is like, okay, we can't just make ham-fisting live service stuff into games, doesn't really work. Turning studios like Rocksteady and making them live service stuff doesn't work. Jim Ryan didn't work.
Yeah.
So if these things don't work, what else can we do? And I think all the CEOs turn their heads to Fortnite and Roblox.
Yes. And
they've been doing their own thing for years, and no one really cared. And I think in some ways, like GTA Online was doing it, they just didn't care to notice because they were just making so much money. But yeah, I speculated that, especially with Battlefield Labs. Like Battlefield Labs felt like hey, come join the community. And so it's like, wait, what is this? Like,
fine, fuck you do it. Okay.
Well, I was curious because I was like, what? Because EA talked about user-generated content and how important it's going to be to their business and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And so seeing Battlefield Labs made me think, is this their answer to Roblox? And I don't want to put, I guess maybe this is conspiratorial, maybe it isn't, but take this logic, right? Let's say you're 22 right now, okay?
Okay.
So you were born in 2002, okay? And your childhood playing games was Fortnite and Roblox, which are both relatively cartoony, right?
Yeah.
Now, recently Fortnite has updated with the Fortnite creation tool and stuff like that. You can make like kind of modern looking stuff, and you can create that same thing with Roblox, but the audiences for both of those games are still skew incredibly young, which creates its own problems. But let's say you're EA and you have this much more adult-oriented series in Battlefield, and you're like, hey, all these kids that grew up with Roblox and Fortnite, they don't want to play with 8-year-olds anymore, right?
Yeah.
So they want to create things in a more adult-oriented thing. What can we do? Well, we have this thing called Battlefield, so why don't we do Roblox, but Battlefield, and then all these kids growing out of Roblox come over here. Yes. We get creators. I'm sure GTA is probably doing something similar. Yeah, that's the next big thing is user-generated content, which I agree with you. I don't like that because I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like you just make games, and it's also an unsustainable thing. Not everybody can have a user-generated. And also, if you're learning to make games, I don't know, it makes me sad if some kid learns all their skills on Roblox, and then they have to make stuff, not because they want to make it, but because the algorithm in Roblox and the content creators are playing certain games. So it's just this big monster where it's like the kids are making one type of game because that's the popular game, and the content creators are filming videos based on that game because that's what all the content creators are making. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where nothing is created, nothing is creative, nothing is fun. It's just algorithms feeding algorithms based on popularity, based on key performance indicators that hopefully at the end of the month you get a payout. Just like with YouTube or something like that. And I don't like that is the paradigm within which so many people are making games. Maybe I'm panicking, I don't know, but I don't think I am. And of course, on top of all that is predation and Roblox being a completely gutless company when it comes to like censoring things for China and stuff like that. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but
hey, that's okay. It angers you.
Anyway. Okay. YouTube.com/gaming discourse, Patreon.com/gaming discourse. New video tomorrow, probably. If not, for sure Wednesday. And next week we'll have Avowed takes. I'm really excited for this Avowed conversation. So
I think I'm gonna squeeze in some time. I'm gonna force myself to squeeze in some time on Avowed.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Text me what you think tomorrow.
No.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye.